Well, I think it's more just like it's not even about like interpreting the stories or leaving room to do that. It's more just it literally is just like the tone or the experience of reading it was a lot different than a lot of the comics that I've been reading lately. You know, it really was more like reading a novel, which I love.
Yeah.
I love reading novels, but that's not necessarily the experience I expect or look for when I sit down with a comic book. So I think it always took me a bit to kind of adjust to the tone and the complexity of Finder.
Definitely with the first story, I felt that.
Yes.
And I actually took a breather between the first volume and the second volume just because it's so dense and it was taking up so much of my time.
Yeah. Well, I think
it was almost intimidating going back into it.
Well, see, this is my thing with Finder too, and I do want to say, if I haven't said already, that I really did enjoy Finder because it's such a it's an award-winning book. It's been nominated for several Eisners. I think it won one for its internet incarnation. So if people take nothing else away from this, they should know that Finder is a very smart, beautifully drawn, worthwhile series. Really, I'm just kind of talking about
classically drawn too.
Yep, it's just kind of like my own kind of reactions to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like objectively, Finder is absolutely fantastic, and for the most part, I enjoyed it. I forgot my point again, but I'll make the point that I like the second story more, I think, than the first because I felt like it I could breathe a little bit. You know, we got out of the city of Anvard, right, which is this very densely populated, kind of claustrophobic city, and there were scenes outdoors, and you got to kind of, it wasn't so much about Jaeger's past, really. You got to just kind of start fresh, learn about the Naima. It was a simpler story in a lot of ways.
Which was
it was something. It was something of a relief to me, So I think I ended up liking that story more in this first volume.
All right, sure. Well, let's move on to the second volume, huh? So this is the second volume of Finder. And Finder is still going. There is a graphic novel that's collected after these two.
Yeah, Dark Horse released these two books, and then they've just released
The Voice.
Voice. Which is collects material that immediately follows what's collected here and is the most recent Finder graphic novel. So if you get these two books and Voice, you're all caught up. We didn't read Voice yet.
Yeah. Okay, so the first graphic novel on this was Dream Sequence. And there has been a little bit of science fiction touches in this before this, but for the most part it's been pretty much a fantasy, I feel like. Wouldn't you agree? There's aspects of science fiction in it, but it just reads like a fantasy.
It reads like a fantasy.
Yeah.
I would classify it as a science fiction because there's not. Well, they do hint at magic, but there's not, I don't think, real magic.
Like the tribal stuff, and you know what I mean? It just feels...
It feels like a fantasy, but there's not magic.
Yeah.
Some of the characters believe in magic.
Yeah. And
practice magic, but I don't think there's actual magic.
Yeah. Although there are, anamorphic characters and stuff.
Yeah, but
in here
that's
and stuff
science.
Like that. Yeah, I know. But anyways, this is the first, very science fiction-y type story, Dream Sequence. Yeah. It's about this character, McNeil, who pretty much, he builds a world in his head elsewhere. And people can kind of tune into this world, in his head, which is only in his head, which is kind of, I don't know, it's so abstract, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's a virtual... I mean, it's not so abstract these days. I mean, it's kind of like the logical extension of Facebook and the internet. It's basically like a virtual reality space that exists inside the head of this character
man that other people can just kind of
go into like World of Warcraft or something.
Yeah, I guess. And there we started with this character Io, a new character that we're introduced to, who plugs into this world, and he's just really smitten by it because it's just very realistic, as opposed to other worlds that he goes into where pretty much it makes you do certain things, I feel like Final Fantasy games are, if anybody plays Final Fantasy games. Like the games nowadays, it's it makes you kind of do certain things and go through a certain story arc. And the old Final Fantasy games, there was a whole world to explore and all kinds of secret things, and you kind of do what you wanted to. I kind of feel like that's kind of what he's liking about Elsewhere in this is that the world, he can do whatever he wants, and it's so immersive. Like, he can have any kind of experience he wants in there. Like, and he's pretty much just there to get out of the city, to be out in the real life, and just the realistic, like, wind through his hair and that touch of, like, the rocks and stuff like that. So basically, he's just enjoying being in this like pretty like basic like environment in McNeil. But things start to go wrong because obviously this corporation is latched onto Elsewhere, and they are, Elsewhere is very profitable, so they want to keep Elsewhere going for a very long time, and it's just in McNeil's head. So I don't know. There's a lot of like things going on there with the corporation trying to pretty much take over McNeil's body, pretty much giving him a lobotomy, and but there's a lot of like things that go wrong with this environment that he's created. Most notably is there's this character that's kind of invaded Elsewhere, who is I don't know, pretty much like destroying people as they're coming in there. Like, he's like mutilating them and twisting them like pretzels, and
he mutilates their bodies, or rather the bodies of their avatar in the virtual environment of Elsewhere, which in the real world causes things like epileptic seizures and hallucinations. This character has somehow invaded the virtual space of Elsewhere. A character who bears a startling similarity to
Jaeger.
Our ostensible protagonist from the series, who otherwise has nothing to do with this story.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But it was a really cool story, but I feel like it was really like separate from the other. Like, I mean, obviously it's the same world as Finder, but this is the first one that doesn't really... I mean, Jaeger is not, like you said, part of this one, or any of the people like in his life before.
Yep, this is the first one that really... we start out with. Although I think it's in Anvard.
Yeah, it is.
Place in Anvard.
That suffocating city again.
Yeah, but this is the first. Yeah, this really is the first time we really start off fresh with new characters, and Jaeger plays more of a cameo role, a significant cameo role in a way.
If it's him, even.
Yeah, well, read the footnotes.
Okay.
But, but I like that about Finder, that it can do that. Like, I like that each graphic novel kind of, like, starts a new story, and maybe Jaeger will come into it, maybe he won't.
And this is a good way to start the second volume, too. It's just like pretty much the first step.
Yeah, I really liked Dream Sequence. It may have been my favorite. I think overall the Finder Library 2 was better than 1. I think.
Okay.
Well, you really like
I like
Volume
1 first.
I think Carla Speed McNeil though improves as a storyteller, as an artist. We haven't really even talked about her artwork at all. So I feel like she has this also is a complex story, but I feel like she has a better command of the themes that she's working with here.
I just like it a little rougher, maybe a little looser.
There you go. Yeah, okay, that's fair.
The second story in this graphic novel, there's 4 altogether.
But you like Dream Sequence, right?
Yeah, I like it a lot. Is Mystery Date, which is kind of an interesting one.
I would say the strangest
it's pretty strange.
In Finder was Mystery Date.
Basically, this girl kind of comes out... Did you want to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. Basically, this young girl comes out of this tribe where prostitution is kind of like something that they do, it seems like. And she comes to a traditional university in the city, and she pretty much kind of continues her ways a little bit. She's learning to be a prostitute still. She's very sexually active, and she just kind of falls in love with these 2 professors who are kind of like co-professors at the university. And one is a dragon bird-like character. Like, it's very interesting, with very interesting sexual appetites.
Yes.
And then the other professor is this very distant, cold man with... He has like a cloth over his eyes, so you don't know if he's... Well, it might say in the footnotes.
It does!
If he's blind or what. But she doesn't know, so I mean, we're seeing it through her eyes. She's not really sure.
Yep.
And basically, it's like this girl's relationship with these 2 men. So I don't know. It was interesting. I actually really enjoyed this one.
Oh yeah, it was great. Really strong material, and it sounds like goofy farce almost in the way we're describing it. But actually, it's played really straight, and it's about Carla Speed McNeil, really exploring the contrasting sexual mores of all of the different societies
this
and cultures that exist in this world, and in a really mature way, right? Like their ideas of sexuality and mating and prostitution are different from ours and different from each other's, but they're all valid. And they all exist within a moral framework that these individuals have found workable. So, yeah, I really like this story. It was really interesting.
It was interesting, yeah. A little bit, like, it reminded me of, like, Animal Planet a little bit, like when it got to the, like, dragon-like creatures. You know what I mean? It's just, like, this like just odd like sexual thing that they're kind of like the other two are pretty much just like witnessing.
Yeah, at one point, Shar is the name of the Lyska, I think, are what the dragon type creatures are known as, and they've shown up, you know, in earlier volumes in the background. At one point, he invites the human professor and Very, the young woman protagonist, to accompany him to his mating ritual. You know, all the Lyska get together in this big field and go through their elaborate mating procedures. So,
which is a lot like animals, like trying to like you know impress the others, and a lot of very intricate things that they do.
Yep. I'm just realizing there's not actually. Is there any actual sex though in Mystery Date? Now that I think about it.
Well,
I mean, it happens off camera. Is there sex scene in it?
Well, not like as we know it necessarily, but like her riding the back of the
I mean that's more like foreplay, I think. Yeah, it's interesting. Now that I think about it, there's not. It's about sex and sexuality, but there's not an actual sex scene.
Although Jaeger does make an appearance.
Oh yeah, Jaeger and her.
So yeah, there's that.
It's sort of we see them immediately post.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one had no Jaeger at all. He literally shows up. He has sex with Very, who's the main character of this story, and that's it.
and then leaves. Yeah.